Hello and welcome back to the Roundup by News of the Week, the show where I, Jake Whitwell, explain and summarise the key news, helping you stay informed. As you can see with a little light above me and a Christmas jumper, it's Christmas time and this is going to be the last episode of the year because of that. So, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to anyone listening or watching. Quite conveniently, that's actually in the colours of the website with the blue and the white. So unless I find it to be annoying and have to re-record, I'm going to leave it in. Cool. So with that out of the way, I'll get into it. Firstly, the Telegraph covered what they call humiliation for Labour after a song of a parody of A Lonely Christmas has been surging in the charts. The song mocks Labour's decision to cut winter fuel payments for pensioners and has so far generated £15,000 for Age UK. It also topped the Big EE Top 40 chart, which compiles music based on Apple Music streams. Despite this, the people behind the song have criticised it and sort of moaned about how BBC aren't showing it. A spokesperson for BBC then sort of said they make the decisions to what they play with context and the viewer in mind, so there's been no resolution there. The Times covered new plans from Yvette Cooper, who has announced plans called terror orders, which would restrict children's use online. The idea is that it will stop them being radicalised online. These terror orders could be used under the Prevent scheme, which is already in place for kids, and it could affect kids as young as 10 and prohibit them from using sites like Telegram, or other online forums, or certain websites which might be deemed at risk or a risk to these children and them being radicalised. This comes after an independent review recommended this exact change, so Labour are working on policy recommendations rather than something that's intensely and intrinsically driven by them. Importantly, Miss Cooper said that the restrictions around this must be necessary and proper. They can't just be, and they have to be quite concrete because it's dealing with kids. And so along with that, there would be then the potential of criminal sanctions to come along if people breach those terror orders, but there's been no confirmation or discourse on how it would be monitored, so they are very much still plans at the moment and not anything concrete put in place. The Times also detailed an ex-Liberal Democrat MP or candidate has been branded a bigot over her wearing of an offensive t-shirt. She's wearing a t-shirt that depicted the definition of a woman, and then noun, and then adult human female. She was labelled a TERF and an illiberal TERF, sorry, and she was expelled from the party. She claims she was campaigned against within the party and subject to silencing, intimidation and bullying. Natalie Bird, the woman in question, is now suing the party for £90,000 worth of damages after she claims she was victimised and barred from standing over her gender critical views, which are protected by which are protected at the moment by the 2010 Equality Act. The Independent noted Ed Miliband has said it's logical for people to expect household bills to be lowered by Labour's green energy plans. He insisted this, which has been said since in their campaign but before winning the general election, as at the moment there is speculation over whether it will actually benefit consumers or whether the benefits won't stack up properly. A lot of it is to do with how long it would take to see the reduction in energy bills because of the lack of infrastructure and the amount of money that needs to be spent to put it in place. The article centred around his comments, which are very, very critical of the Conservatives' record on this issue, and like with last year, obviously similar to this time last year actually, Sunak walking back on bans to fossil fuel cars and things. So it's not necessarily that he was defending it with actual facts and reason, he was just coming forward and saying, look, we're doing something here, while the Conservatives weren't, although there are protected benefits for Labour's energy plans. The Telegraph noted Starmer is set to appoint 30 new peers in his honours list to swing the House of Lords his way. Now, here, I think the Telegraph, I need to step back here, because I think the Telegraph have sort of come out with this outlandish and critical headline, where it doesn't work like that. So I think they have merits. I'm not critiquing them. So I think they have merits. I'm not critiquing them as a company or anything like that. Just on this article and on the substance of this article, we're just going to go through and correct it for them. They say the Lords will be swung Starmer's way. It's not. There's no partisan majority in the Lords because of a group of peers called crossbenchers, which sit and like balance out the numbers. So even though there might be at the moment a Conservative majority, it's then balanced out by Labour, Lib Dems, and the crossbenchers. So it's not quite that there's a massive partisan majority in the Lords. It is an increasingly big upper house though, with all of these appointments, and it is, I think, the second biggest in the world, certainly the biggest in the Western world compared to other democracies we would consider similar to us. There are currently 273 Tory peers, 187 Labour peers, 184 crossbenchers, and then something like 78 Lib Dem peers. So even with this new 30, which I don't think all are Labour peers, by the way, even with this new injection of 30 peers, it's not going to see this like massive swing to Labour. More this sort of addressing an imbalance, which isn't even a massive criticism because we've had 14 years of one-party government, so there's always going to be a sort of imbalance there because they were the ones doing the list, they were the ones in power, right? So it's not like this is a huge issue, it's sort of being blown out of proportion a tiny bit for me personally. The article then took aim at the Salisbury Convention, which protects manifesto legislation or legislation within the manifesto, like green energy stuff or their immigration, can't remember what it's called now, their immigration pact thing. Protects it from scrutiny in the Lords so that they can fulfil their representative function of delivering that mandate they've got from the electorate. This, they said, opened itself up to hypocrisy and sort of damaged a little bit of the credibility of the Lords. That is a criticism fielded, but then I would ask about that representative function not being fulfilled with that scrutiny and whether we still get pretty good legislation coming out sometimes. So that's in the air. That bit's a little bit more subjective. The wording of the first part was what made me like rear my head and be like, let's calm this down a little bit. The Independent reported Starmer has revealed a plan for a new EU defence pact. He was talking in the context of the war in Ukraine and saying that it's vital that that the EU and the UK work closely together. When pressed about how this could look practically, he said the Defence and Security Pact could involve coordination on areas like defence, recruitment and training. Starmer used the example of British troops currently operating in Estonia as a way this could feasibly exist as it is right now. He stressed it would be complementary to NATO, likely not to damage relations anywhere else, and also to sort of protect people's view of what their reform could be, because saying, oh, we want a new EU defence pact sounds a little bit scary or to some people, like shocking to some people, right? Back to the Telegraph now. They noted that Peter Mandelson has been appointed the ambassador to the USA for Starmer's government. The former cabinet minister and a new Labour man, Peter Mandelson, has been picked as Starmer's answer to that role after reports of a fractured relationship with the USA. Now, there's been tons of speculation around this, mostly because Labour decided to sit back and not appoint someone when they enter government. They would appoint someone after the USA's general election to sort of put themselves on a good footing politically. Because of this, I mean, it's been in the news for months with people like Nigel Farage entering throwing his hat in the ring at some point, being like, I'd be a good ambassador. At one point, though, he did actually say Mandelson could be a good fit for the role, I think. But despite that, there's been there's been support for this measure in the Labour cabinet, obviously, and there's been reported criticism from the USA side, with some people in Trump's incoming cabinet and his campaign staff calling Mandelson a complete moron. So we'll see how that stacks up. LBC noted Elon Musk is considering making a donation to Reform UK after a meeting with Nigel Farage in Mar-a-Lago in Florida. He's reportedly giving serious thought to the idea of a donation after reports last week that it could be around 100 million. Farage said that last week, he knew nothing about it, but he would welcome a legal donation. However, he's now said money was discussed in the meeting with Musk, but there was no amount given, and that, as far as he was concerned, would be something discussed further later on, and that it was an open negotiation. Now, this has been met with a lot of criticism back in the UK, with loads of people saying it could be Elon Musk getting overly involved in the British democratic process and sort of threatening how we do things. And there have been some speculation that Labour might tweak rules to campaign donations to sort of limit the extent that there is legal room for Musk to donate to Reform UK. Now, there's already pretty tight restrictions here. I mean, there's loads of rules about who can spend money and where the money can come from, especially over private and public money in terms of what's coming from the taxpayer and not. But I don't know that there's much legislation here on like, how do we police a private company investing in or not investing or donating to a uh, political party. In the USA, it's really, really different again. I mean, they spend money for fun on their elections. It is really, really ludicrous the amount of money they put into their politics. So we'll see how that works out as well. That's all the news I got for this week. Thanks everyone very much for listening and watching. This, like I said, there won't be an episode next week. This will be the last one of the year. So Merry Christmas, everyone. Have a good 2 weeks. I'll see you then. Bye.